Welcome, folks. This is Dr. PMak here, and I'm really, really excited to welcome two fabulous, fabulous guests to this show. And I'm going to let them, introduce themselves in a little moment. But the Voices Less Heard podcast is really a platform that we bring voices that are less heard. And by that, there are a lot of people in the community that do amazing work, but they don't get to talk about this work, right? And their voices in so many ways are really heard in the mainstream media. And so we want to, talk about the challenges they face, the resilience they demonstrate, and the, unique contributions they make to our world. And so for me and even the team behind the Voices Less Heard podcast is really to create a platform for authentic storytelling, to foster empathy and understanding, as well as inspire action for a more just and equitable society. So in each episode, I'm always having conversations with folks that would appear ordinary, but are doing extraordinary things in the community. So with that, I'm going to hand over perhaps to who wants to start? Emmanuel, Z?
Ladies first.
Okay. So, Z, who are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm Zarya. And as far as this conversation goes, I am one of the founders of the Four Roots Collective with Emmanuel. And the hats that we wear in this work. I guess it's a baby, right? We just started it. We just was born in February. After many conversations, I think one of the things that brings Emmanuel and I together as partners in this work is like the commitment and passion for community and bringing community together. And so we really just, from both of our experiences, just really recognizing that there's some gaps right now. There's some fragmentation in our community, and it's preventing us from coming together. It's preventing us from celebrating, from experiencing joy, from creating a spot, a place for ourselves here on Vancouver Island, and in particular Greater Victoria. And so the Four Roots Collective is now, it's shifted, it morphs, as we're telling who we are, it's changed. And I think right now it feels really good to say that we're a network of community organizers and social entrepreneurs, and that are from people of African descent, Black folks, that are also focusing on community-based research as one of the things that I kind of bring into the work with my connection to UVic and, near completing that PhD thing. So really just trying to, seeing that there's a lot of resource. Sorry,
Hold up. That PhD thing.
Yeah.
Speaking so casually about it, that's no mean feat. So tell us about that thing. What's going on?
Yeah, so I'm 6 years in. You and I met, obviously, together. Yep. We were such an eager, keen cohort. Hey, weren't we such a great cohort?
We were.
It was so good. We had such a cool group, actually.
Absolutely.
And started back in 2018 in the education department. And you and I became friends pretty quickly, even though we came from such different backgrounds. And I'm like, here I'm living in a trailer with my 4 kids. I'm like a hippie coming to do my PhD. Everybody else is looking at educational theory and how to and literacy and all these things. And I'm like, I'm here to say this school sucks. Throw it out.
but that's so interesting. That's so interesting, Z, though, that as I think about it and the more I hear your story, even in the last conversation that you and I had the privilege to have, different geographical positions that we're coming from, right? I'm coming from Southern Africa, Zimbabwe specifically, right? But I get to campus in 2018, I'm like, OMG, what have I just done to myself, right? Because I was coming from a different background. So it wasn't even an educational academic background, Z, right? And so maybe that you don't know, I was coming from practice, right? So for decades, I I established an NGO, a nonprofit organization back in 2008. Yeah, 2008. And so I've been doing that for quite a while. And then fortuitous circumstances led to me coming here, right? And So I'm in this first, like with this cohort, and I'm sitting, I'm like, oh my word, I'm sitting with all these smart people. What am I going to say? So it's funny you say that. So it's funny you say that.
Major imposter syndrome when we got there. Because same for me. I was momming for the whole time until I got there, right? So I did all of my school online, and then I'm like, I want to do my PhD. And then I realized that there's a whole academic culture that especially exists at UVic. And I think that's, one of the things that connected us so quickly, right? Is recognizing, holy shit, we're in this, like, we're on our own. We need to stick together, like, really quickly. We needed to find our people. And, a few people in our cohort, some of our other homies from Africa, different countries in Africa also didn't make it through, right? Like, they weren't prepared well. And so, that I think was a really big piece that brought us together. And obviously you just burned through it, and I'm always so proud of you that you got through it so fast. And I've been kind of taking my time, but in good reason, because a lot of this work, everything is a culmination, because my work has been really focused on my own story and how I'm healing through this learning process, and wanting to bring some insights and even into how we do PhD work differently. How do we really change, the ways that we understand education and learning? And so, I'm a very kind of like crystallized person. So all of the things come together in this way. It's like this work informs the Farout's work. It all goes together. And we just like gelled so quickly. Like we just were able to like get it. And like, I met Emmanuel and just could see that he's been like holding this leadership in the community really humbly, and not really even maybe identifying as a leader necessarily. And I was just like, we need to band together. No more of this one person at the top. We need lots of leaders working together. And so that's really the ethos of Farout's, is that this is a collective. This is a network. There's many chiefs that are all really talented in their own gifts, and we share those together. And so the work over the last 2 months has really just been weaving connections, kind of building off of Emmanuel's work, which we'll talk about in a second, and the connections that I have, bringing you and Emmanuel together, all of these things, and just saying, hey, we all have this vision to have our kids have places to connect, to see one another, for us to have those things. It's been this last few months has been so healing. Like I've spent more time with people of African descent in the last few months than I've actually probably had in years, like over a decade. So, and the healing has been immense. So, and I can see that it's also, we went to the Africa Fest, just for a quick little story this weekend. We were there celebrating and supporting kind of on the back end with Pulcherie, and she was beaming and felt so supported. She sent me a text this morning to say thank you again. And, there was just like a handful of us that just were there to say, hey, Elder Mama, we got you, and she felt that. And hearing her get up and speak at the end to thank everybody, she was so grateful. I just was replaying her vision too this morning as I was driving, thinking, she said, there are 54 countries that make up like the diaspora. And she said, we want everyone to be here. We want a tent for every single person. And I just, wow, like this year there was only like a couple of countries. And so it's like, it could get so huge. And I got so excited about that. I love it. Whoa, like the vision that she is holding. How beautiful that we get to be a part of it too. So just feeling really grateful. And pass it over now.
I love it. And thanks, Z, for that intro, and even just making these connections around your doctoral program for Roots, as well as the Africa Fest. You recently concluded Africa Fest. And I'm going to come back because you touched in all three, you touched on important points. So we're going to circle back. But first, Emmanuel, what's your story?
So my name is Emmanuel, and I hail from the land of milk and honey. Which is aka Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria. That's where Lagos. I grew up. Yeah, Lagos specifically on the West Coast. So I moved out here for school. I actually moved out here with the ambition to become a medical doctor. And I was at UVic as well. And I think first year of school, I realized that it's not what I thought it was meant to be. In terms of the medical industry being an industry, and I felt the contrast right away moving from Nigeria to live here in Victoria, BC. In terms of the lack of community, the lack of connectedness.
I hear you.
Right, and I really feel at the time I had almost like a revelation how I felt like the sickness here is not a physical ailment. It's more about the lack of connection, which leads into like, isolation, depression, mental health issues, and all these things really have like a deeper rooted source, right? And so I switched gears right away, and ended up studying psychology instead of medicine.
Okay.
With the focus of just like healing, right? That's really been my grounding intention with all the work I've been involved with over the years. And it's like Zarya says, it keeps changing, it keeps morphing, right? As we're all growing. So as we grow what we know, as also it gets updated, right? And so I think my understanding around even community has changed a lot, in terms of it can be tricky, community is supposed to bring us together. But in some way it can be a separation. It can be a tool to separate people as well. It can be like, I'm not part of your community, and I'm part of this community, and that sort of thing. And so there's a binding thread through all of it. We are all here on Earth as a human community. I think that's, we always forget that, but I think that's really
true.
Where it's at, and as self-determination is absolutely important. And so within that higher branch umbrella, we can come back down and find ourselves within all that space. And so through that work, I've started a couple of little projects or businesses. I did some fashion.
Humble, little what? No, you're running big things, man. Eh?
Thank you. Okay, right. So I just followed my interest, I would say. My mom growing up has always been really into business. We've been really successful in her boutiques and fashion. And so that was easy for me to pick up.
Nice.
Because I know living out here, people always ask like, okay, what's Africa like? You guys, have you seen a lion? Like, do you have running water? Do you have electricity? Like, questions.
You run around bare naked, like, what's the fashion? Like, what do you wear anything?
God must be crazy, right? You
God must be crazy.
So it made me realize, like, okay, it's a joke, but it's not a joke, and we have a lot of arts and a lot of culture to show. And even though that was not initially my intention to be a fashion designer, I was like, okay, that's something I can definitely do to show people that we have a lot of beautiful things to offer from our own end, right? And all it is just lack of representation. We have a lot, from where we come from. And so I started Udama Fashion in my language, which is Igala. From the central region of Nigeria, Kogi State. Udama means synergy. It means coming together. It means that we can all do more together. How do I spell
that? Is that?
It's UDAMMA.
UDAMMA. Wow.
Yes. Right. It's really called Udama in the language.
But the connection I'm making right now is with the Swahili word Ujamaa.
Yes.
Yeah. It also is unity.
It's unity. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And so I think that's a conversation and research down the line is there's a lot of similarities within all our languages, and people migrated to different parts, and it's really just dialects in some ways, right?
It's so true, right?
Anyways, go ahead.
And this is and colonialism, man. Like these borders that were created, right? Essentially just separated people. Right? Really, really separated people. Man. Anyway, we'll come back to that.
Absolutely. We'll get back to that 100%. Yeah, Udama means synergy, and just the idea that we can come together as a community to create way more together than what we can do individually. And it's been fun really doing that. I've had to realize a lot of things in terms of even cultural appropriation, right? That was one of my barriers in promoting that out here, because people were not sure if they were felt like they could wear these things and not get called out or whatever the case may be. And really, the business is a form of cultural education, because and celebration, right? Because that's what cultural appreciation is. That's how we all involved in market together. That's how we all give and take and learn from each other, right? And so it's really an invitation to come over to this side and, in an ethical way, come and, participate in whatever calls out to you, whatever you're drawn to.
Yeah.
And then also down the line, me and a friend of mine from church, Shuma, we started a business, a collective more so actually at this point, called The Village.
Okay.
And I remember going on a walk with him and being like, we have kids coming in. We didn't have, he has 2 children now. But that was before that time. And, we have children coming in, and there's African adage that says it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
And so the intention around that has just been to have a hub where people know where to go, like if mom and dad want to travel somewhere, you can leave the kids with your friends and or auntie and uncle and trust that your children won't change into something else when you come back. You know what I mean? Like we all have binding agreements and that sort of thing.
And also in celebration. Sorry, Emmanuel, I must blame you. Right. I must blame me. I must blame Z.
Yes.
Because half the time I'm like, okay, I want to go out with my wife, like cross into Seattle just for a weekend away. And I'm like, damn kids. I love my kids. I love them. But I'm like, Yes. And I didn't know about the village up until this very moment.
Right.
Well, we've kind of talked about it, but because that's through the events. I think we invited you to the last event.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Well, you've been busy.
Yeah, I was busy, but there's an event coming up on Friday,
exactly.
Though, right? Yeah. I don't blame you both. I blame myself. Okay.
No worries.
Yeah.
There's a time for everything, and like absolutely, when everything settles, it will be right in line. We'll be right where we need to be. So I'm not even worried about that.
I love it.
But I'm just saying, like, we've had that going on for maybe upwards of 7 years at this point.
Wow.
We've done things here and there and whatever, but like it's really been the intention to like draw in the crowd, join everybody, and have a space where we have music and celebration in an African diaspora kind of way.
Yep.
We want to hear our musics. Yep. We want to dance. You know what I mean? My form of celebration and partying when I moved in, my understanding of that when I moved here was very different from what I saw when I moved here.
Yep.
For example, we like to dance, like we dance all night long, and you're just like happy connecting with people and it's smiling. It's a connection.
Z is in the dancing mode these days. Like you watch Instagram.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Since when I met her, she's always been dancing.
She's always been a dancer. I love it. Yeah, it's good. So
this is part of our culture. This is part of who we are and how we move our bodies.
Yeah. It is.
It really is healing.
The thing is, culture has literally like the dominant Western, whatever we want to call it, culture that we're in. Where's the dancing? Like it's alarming. It's like, and then particularly in this place, like in British Columbia, because I grew up in Ontario, in like Southern Ontario, Toronto, Hamilton.
Right.
Like when I got out here, I'm just like, what? No one's dancing out here.
Nobody's dancing out
here. Why are we not moving?
And so that's kind of what I was speaking to in terms of that, because when I moved out here, I remember I came after high school in 2008. I moved to Vernon, BC for a year before moving to Victoria. And I realized like the parties there is more about, getting drunk or, doing different kind of, going down different paths or whatever. Which is cool, there's no judgment anyways, but I came to dance. Where's the music and where are the people on the dance floor?
Yeah.
Right. And so rather than criticizing anyone else's space or how they do things, it's really important for us to take that on ourselves in order to just like create our own spaces and, be that change that you want to see and that sort of thing. And so in a nutshell, that's kind of what I've been up to, who I am.
For both of you, I can't even capture everything in a nutshell, right? It's beyond a nutshell, right? But I want to start, some of my questions with you, Emmanuel, right? And it goes to touch on what Z mentioned earlier on around, lack of community. Community is there. There are people of African descent, and you spoke about healing, right? Based on the studies that you took on, did psychology. I'm trying to find a softer landing for this question.
Go for it. No soft landings. Go for it.
No
That's
soft
what we hear.
landings. Okay, no soft landings. What is the problem with our community?
Look at history. Look at where we're coming from.
Unpack that a little bit for me. What?
Even our values. Let's say what capitalism has done with our values. In terms of how we relate with the land. I'm thinking about resource extraction and how brutal we are when, like, it's fine to take things out, but let it regenerate. Is how we cut down the trees. You know, all these things, and that right there is very rooted in how we treat each other.
Wow.
It's very easy to overlook how you step on someone's toe in order to get what you want. Just because capitalism says it's okay as long as you have those numbers working for you. You know what I mean?
So is it that we have so Emmanuel, is it that we have lost our ways of being in favor of this capitalistic route?
Right? I think we forgot who we are. You know, in terms of, like, we need to go back a lot more generations to really realize, like, how we were living and what we were living for. Right now it seems like we have lost our way in a way. I this is just my thoughts, right? And I'm very open to a synthesis of the past and the future, or what's going on right now. I'm not saying that the beautiful technology that we get and we have now, we enjoy, that comes from modern day slavery in Congo. I'm not saying that you know, we should not have technology anymore, but we can have more ethical practices for how we extract these things, and you know, I know we have more ethical substitutions for a lot of things, including petroleum, but it's not lucrative for the industries. Right. So these things are still, it's like a ceiling. It feels like we're ready to really evolve and push past for, like, these things that we want to see for ourselves and for our children. How we want to live and the environment we want to create is very, very here and now. But I really feel like you know, the value that we put on money over life is kind of what is holding us back. Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Man, it's you're saying a whole lot of nuggets, and I'm just trying to choose which one to pursue, right? And so so how okay, let me start. Z, how many generations back? Because Emmanuel said, well, maybe we need to go back several generations. How many and for me, it's sad to think that, oh my word, we need to go several generations to get back who we are. How many generations, Z, do you think? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3 generations back? What do we need? What do we need to do to have an accelerated sort of increase, like accelerated pace of recovering what we've lost? Our Ubuntu, right? I am because we are. Like, what do we need to do?
Yeah. I think it can happen in one generation, because I mean, look at the work that we're doing, right? Like, like so, you know, to bring in some of my stories. So my mom is Scottish descent on my mom's side, and on my dad's side, he's Bajan from Barbados. But I was able to use technology to find out where we come from before the transatlantic slave trade. And so my people are predominantly from Igbo land, and then maybe Ghana is second for me. And so that was like, it was so powerful. Like when I found that out, like it changed so much about how I carry myself, to understand, because even when you go to Barbados, you know, there's a forgetfulness there that probably I would say is stronger and more pronounced than even, you know, folks from continental Africa who've like grown up there on those lands. And because obviously we were taken, you know, it was traumatic, it was horrible, you know, 500 years of being beaten and, you know, forced into horrific things. And to the point where now, you know, both my grandmothers, because I have a step grandmother from Jamaica and then my grandmother from Barbados. If I ask them any questions, you know, if I just the lightest, gentle question about like what it was like, what are their moms like? They don't want to talk about anything. Like there's like, we don't talk about that. Like we're here now. We're not going back there. And so I can't pinpoint how many generations for me. My guess is 3 back was where folks were probably just coming out of enslavement. There, you know, it was 1800s when it ended, but the colonies the plantation colonies continued to be that way until the British just abandoned ship and left, right? And so like when you look at the collective sort of experience of the Caribbean, say for example, or like the American diaspora, it's like there's a deep forgetfulness because we needed to. It's literally a defense mechanism, right? Like we had to create a whole new understanding of who we are in the context of where we were, which is really powerful. And that's, a lot of what the conversation that we're going to have at our event on Friday is about, is recognizing that, wow, like the way that we can literally be, taken to hell and rebuild. Right. And be here all over the world, thriving and still making all the music, still being the people bringing all the fire, bringing all the good food, all the cool, everything, all over the world, even though there's so much pain in our story and there's a lot of trauma. And so when you ask that question to Emmanuel, like what's stopping us, like there's also that, right? There's an awakening that needs to happen. There's a remembering that needs to happen. And healing, which is such a tough word to pin down, but for me, in my work and how I ground the understanding of healing, it's learning that we have an increase of options for how we respond to things. And so the more that we come together, the more we can learn that we can actually respond differently, that we can see this thing that we were told is bad or different or shameful. And then if you get enough practice and experience with it, and you actually see, oh, I can have a different idea about this. It doesn't have to be that way. I can see it differently.
Yeah, but I hear you, and allow me to interject here and ask another question that's coming up based on what you have said and what Emmanuel has said too, right? That of course there's, maybe the 3 generations you say maybe we need to go back to. And then Emmanuel did point out, like, well, how did we get here? The technology we are using and all of this is a product of colonization and, resource extraction. And you speak to, Z about, the slave trade, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Isn't it easy to blame colonization for our loss of our own culture?
Totally.
So, what?
I love that question. That's a good one.
What do we need to do ourselves, right? Because I can also look back and say, well, you know what? Yeah, blame it on colonization and let's move on. And here's what we're doing now. But what is it that we need to do? So what is, if I mean, ask this a pointed question is, what is For Roots Collective doing to get us back to center our culture, our tradition, our knowledge, our arts, and all of these things? What are we doing as For Roots?
Absolutely, yeah. And again, it comes back to the value system. I'm not in the habit of blaming anyone else for my habit, for what I'm going through.
Sure.
But I think we're really we're in a certain context, and it's important to be aware of how the context affects us and how we relate with each other. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
And so, in terms of what we're saying, what we value is not a bad thing, but maybe we put too much value in just one particular thing. In the context of capitalism, it's money.
Yeah.
If you're not getting certain numbers or whatever, it's not worth it, right? And so how can we open that conversation up to value our connections with each other, to value the integrity that we hold in our spaces? And how can we reward that? And how can we, really model that for our children to see that it's worth it to be a good person according to whatever your standards of good is. And not like, just stump over everybody to get to where you want to be. Because most of these people that might be even at those places, you might get there and find that that's not all it's made out to look like. You know what I mean? It's really just a whole story or a whole thing we're in. Right. And so what For Roots is doing is identifying the different organizations in the local area right now that are doing things that we can see and we want to commend. We want to uplift and support that. Like talking about Sherry and what she was doing this weekend. She's been doing that for years. And I've seen it be big, and I've seen it COVID really hit everybody, and so even reviewing all these things through COVID. You know what that looks like. It's not easy for anybody, let alone for people that look like us, not from here, and all the sort of things, right? And in with the village, who was the village during COVID, we had an outdoor event to try and get people together. and we had like a fashion show by the beach. It was beautiful.
Nice. I
And
love
at
it.
that time, it felt like the best thing that we could have ever done because everyone was still so inside. It was isolation. Everyone was scared of each other. Social distancing, 6 feet away and all that kind of stuff, right? And so being able to like even be in spaces together was really healing.
Yeah.
And so personally, I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
I kind of more follow the questions that seem more poignant.
Sure.
And we all have a conversation about it and see where we need to go. But I think like, yeah, that's kind of where our focus has been right now. And
sure.
And like I said, that's always going to evolve as time goes on.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
I love that.
Yeah.
So before you come in, Z, we've been speaking about Paul Cherie, and so we might have folks that are like, who's Paul Cherie? Where are these guys? So Paul Cherie. So I'm gonna make a plug. Yeah, Paul Cherie is a phenomenal woman who's running the Africa Arts and Cultural Center here in Victoria. It's called also called the Isampa Center, and just recently, just this past weekend, June 22nd to the 21st to the 23rd, Paul Cherie's organization organized the Africa Festival, and so she takes this festival. Actually, she's taking it to Quebec, and it's here in Victoria as well. I think it's the 11th year running now in Victoria, right?
Yes.
And really, Africa Fest it really strives to promote an environment in which all Canadians take full advantage of dynamic cultural experiences. And so Paul Cherie is phenomenal and has been doing this for decades. And really, for Roots, just as we hear from Emmanuel and Z, for Roots has taken the stance of, hey, let's support, let's uplift, let's ensure that we're building community. Anything that's being done by people of African descent for Roots is there to support, to promote, not to compete, but to uplift. So thanks for mentioning that. And I just thought I would, bring Paul Cherie, even though she's not here, but just sort of clear that up. Folks don't like, who is this? It's just giving that context. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Z.
Yeah, so just to like expand on that, I think like I see to be maybe at least 3 sort of starting points for what makes for Roots a little bit different and meeting like some needs that we can see or some gaps maybe now currently. And it's just like really taking a strength-based approach like to how we're doing this work. So coming in, I mean, any organization, where you get a couple of leaders together and we think we have like the best idea, like we're going to come in, we're going to get all the funding that's available, for our particular, that's another piece, right? It's just like the access to resource for each community. Right. And so there's often that energy when you see new NGOs pop up, is that they're not particularly working together because we want to take care of ourselves, which is fair, right? We want to be able to eat, we want to take care of our families, we want to be paid for the work we're doing. And so taking a strength-based approach right from the beginning was really close in my heart. Like that was like a big part of it. Like I remember when I was starting to ask him, because Manuel's been here for 16 years, right?
16 years,
I've been here for 8. And I spent a lot of time, like on Salt Spring and other places. And so, for me, it was like slowly sort of just asking questions and trying to figure out, okay, who's here and like what's happening here. And so, to bring Paul Cherie and like knowing, okay, this is one of the key elder, African elder women in our community that's been holding down holding stuff down. And yet there was still like some energy around the way in which, the work is being done, the way in which she was doing the work. And my heart really from the beginning, I said to Emmanuel really early on, was like, I just see her as an elder and she needs support. And rather than us focusing on every mistake that maybe has been made as a businesswoman coming up here in this place where it's super hard to do anything, like let's look at the strength, which is that Africa Fest has been running for 11 years, that there is actually a fixed center. Isamba is a center that is designed to have us come together that isn't even being used to its full potential. There are office spaces, there's meeting space, and nobody's using it. And so that was my heart, was like I could come in all shiny and new. I'm gonna be a PhD, I'm gonna be the leader like that, and I was just like, no, that's not what we need right now. We need everybody to come together and look at the succession plans of things, right? Like everybody has their time to do the things they need to do. So for Roots is really that, coming in from a place of humility. Like we're not coming in saying like we have all the answers for all the people of African descent. It's like not that. It's very different work. And so then that moves to my next point, which is like centering relationships, right? Like this is really relational work. And that's a little bit different, right? Because you can't really put you can't put numbers on relationships. You can't, you know, there's no payout for it particularly. And it takes a lot of time. And, you know, we bring in the conversation that we were, you know, the question you had before, just around people's guards and pain and their experiences and how, you know, and mistrust and like all these things that are harboring, because, you know, even if we just think from COVID till now, like we all went through like extreme isolation and shock, and, you know, like everybody was impacted by this all over the world. And so coming out of that, I think everybody's a little bit, you know, like licking their wounds a bit, and kind of, you know, everyone was still kind of like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to be back, you know. It's because a lot of people, I think, experienced really what it meant to be alone, right? Because we all were living in a lot of these different sort of like communities that maybe didn't have deep enough roots. And then when, you know, when lockdown happened and there was a bigger power deciding who was family and who was not, it really, like, it impacted everybody, right?
That's
and
true,
so
it did,
so relationships being at the center of this work is really important. It always, I mean, it's the same, it builds from my work in education. Same thing, humans at the core, what makes us, again, this is a little bit sciencey, and so like obviously one element, I don't live in this area, but if you think about evolution, like we actually evolved in relationship. Like that's literally what changed our brains.
That's true.
From being more primate to becoming humans. Actually, like, I think it's called encephalization, is the process where when you are like, how people respond to you and receive you is actually expanded our brains. So it was being in community, you know, being in larger groups of people, right? Till we got to about 100 or so, and then they would break off or something. And so but now, you know, we center, you know, rational, you know, no feeling and and rational, and the dollar, and like all of these other things, like at the expense of relationships. So trying to bring that and hold that into for Roots is really, really important. And we all do it differently. We have different ways of weaving our relationships. And so like, that's also the important part about like having so many different people sharing this work. And then the last.
Okay, no, go ahead with you. But before you know, like, one of the things that I like give it to you, Z, is your ability to bring relationships into whatever conversation. Like, you are such a champion for that. Like, I think there's no conversation that I have with you that doesn't bring in other people. Oh, hey, you need to meet this person. Oh, we need to make this. Like, you're so good at making these different incredible, you know, connections within the community. And so, kudos to you for doing that, and thank you for being a champion in our community, for bringing people together. It's sometimes not easy because some relationships don't want to come together, right? Some people don't want to come together, but thank you for pulling all of us and saying, hey, come on, let's go.
And I don't have it right all the time. I still have things, I still have trauma, I still get freaked out sometimes. I was pretty tired after this weekend. It was really beautiful, but also it's a lot of energy output.
I can imagine.
To be seen as a leader. You know, many times people actually came up and were like, thinking that, you know, they're just, you know, the way that people kind of can feel us holding them there and then feeling responsible for it, right? It's like, you can't really go back from it either. So it's it's, you know, even though sometimes I'm like, let's move to Jamaica right now.
And sorry for distracting you from my third point. I don't know if you still have it.
I have the third point, which is really important, because this is more of the business piece. This is the walking in both worlds, like responding to kind of what Emmanuel was saying about capitalism and our values. It's like we also all need to eat, and we need to live good lives, and I want that for us. I want that for our people, because that's we you know, there's an analogy of the Monopoly game, right? And you know, in Monopoly, everybody gets to go and you collect $200. And like, we've been held back from that. We had to go around and around and around and around. Everyone was collecting $200 and we were collecting nothing this whole time. And so everyone's building hotels and we're still like not collecting, we're not building, we have no money. And so that's a big part of this too, right? Is that survival piece. Like, everybody's just barely getting by, because if you look at the actual demographics, we go to the census, we look at the, you know, Pochery actually did a report.
There's a report, black people in BC, right?
Black in BC report, which, you know, just gives a good snapshot. Like, there's more work to be done. Also, our friend Ariel from EA, he has a really great report on food, on the experiences of food. And in fact, the Black community in like from COVID, like around COVID times, we were experiencing food insecurity at a higher rate than Indigenous folks, just by a couple of percentages. But But so it's real that out here our numbers aren't as great as other communities. There hasn't been a welcoming of migration. The migration patterns haven't been the same that to here as opposed to other parts of Canada. And so the realities around business, right? Emmanuel's been hosting things through the village for 7 years, and it's still hard to like break through to actually have it be something, and the fashion business, right? Like to have these to be sustaining, and so that's like the piece that really quickly happened for me with division of roots, was like there needs to be social enterprise attached to this. We actually need to like mobilize people, empower the people who are the innovators and the creators and the business entrepreneurs to work together to like to build up our businesses, to have places that we know that we're all supporting each other in real ways, because we need to live, and so we're not throwing capitalism out the door tomorrow, unfortunately. And so that's that walking in both worlds kind of like, it's not all about money, but like I'm very I have no problem saying that, like I want us to have money. Like
no, that's good, and I speak about it unapologetically, and I'm unashamed about it. Like we need money. So you're beginning to go into the question that I had formulated actually in my mind as you were speaking about the economic bit of it. Before I do that, on Friday the event is hosted by the village.
Yes, the village and for it. It's like
the village and for roots. I've RSVP'd for that. I'm coming through, right? So okay. I'm gonna be there on Friday. And so just about this economic piece, it's complicated, yes, but what do you think are perhaps 1 or 2 or 3 practical steps that can get, in particular, people of African descent ahead, right? So we'll have all these community functions, but folks won't come because they're doing a shift, or they're pushing this and they're pushing this and pushing this hustle for them to be able to put bread on the table, or milk, in the fridge or something. Right. And then, of course, with that, we are losing values and cultural and connections, etc., etc. What do you both think could be maybe 1, 2, 3 things that perhaps as people of African descent we need to engage ourselves on around the economic emancipation? And then who else do we need to engage in these conversations, right? Within this, do we need to engage the provincial government? Do we need to engage Victoria Foundation or other local foundations, perhaps engage them? How and what? And what do we have a common statement? Do we have something that we can say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Government or whatever, here we are, here's who we're representing us for roots, this is what we need? What are the practical steps towards economic emancipation for our people?
I can just start with one, maybe we can bounce back and forth, but just like the first one, bringing in the event. So the event that we're hosting on Friday is the Ancient Futures series. So there's going to be it's the first of several events in a conversation around food and culture. And the first event title is The Journey of Fufu. And so the whole idea of that is kind of to the point that I was talking about before, just this journey of 500 years through the diaspora and all the ways that people of African descent have found themselves in every corner of the earth. And yet there's this evidence of our connection to one another that comes from the motherland still. So food is one of the avenues. And so that event, it's funny because we birthed the idea maybe a few months ago, and it felt so far away, and we're like, we're doing it.
And now here we are, Fridays.
We actually Sasha, who is on the team, she's going to send out a formal. She's going to send out a formal email. I'm letting you know right now. I'm kind of leaking that she's actually staying in Alberta. So she's stepping back from the core circle of her roots. Yeah, for now. which is sad, but it also, it just speaks to like the difficulties in this work, right? It was hard. Like that was hard for us, relationally speaking, you know, because we started this thing together and
workload wise
and workload wise and you know, we're both, especially that, and there was particular reasons why we, you know, we allied together, and this could be a whole other conversation because it's real stuff that you know, like when you're, because we need that, right? We actually need people from that represent different like backgrounds and layers of their identity to work together, because there are real barriers that we face, right? So if Emmanuel and I go into a bank to try to get money together from the bank, like you know, they might not give it to us, but if Sash came in with us, like it might be a lot easier for us to those kind of decisions, right? And that's actually there is actual statistics even in the Black in BC report about that, like about access to loans and things. So you know, so for us, that was a big hit. We just learned this last week, and and I actually grew weary. I was like, maybe we should just not do it. We hadn't put it out yet. We hadn't advertised for it yet, and I was like, why don't we just call it? And Emmanuel's like, we are not. We will not.
An option.
Like, okay.
Full steam ahead. It's not the first time that we've had to run into a snag, right? This
is the work. Is how do we keep going, right?
And it's an analogy for our lives too. You know, we always have things coming up. Like look at COVID. No one saw that coming.
Right.
True.
But you still live on it. You push on, right? And so we're excited that we were able to bounce back from such a blow.
And we really bounced back, because like that was what I was just gonna say, and then I'll pass it to you. But just that, like you know, so Ariel, our other partner in this, who EA has and EA is an amazing social enterprise focusing on food sovereignty,
on food sustainability.
Their website is EA Creatives. EACreatives.com, and he's been here as a community builder. Him and his partner Jess, they've been holding it down, and he heard about Fruits and really got excited right away, and was like, you know, I have a little bit of like Government of Canada money, like let's just do an event to like you know, announce your guys' arrival and to like let people know that we're here. And so just to be seen and held in that way is so beautiful. Also,
I love it. That's the power of community, right?
It's like we only started in February. We've been hustling actually, and we're not getting paid either. I think
love it. And to add to all this, talking about the economic piece and everything like that, not just, you know, I don't see economy as just dollar signs. I see it as time. I see it as energy put in.
That's true.
Your sweats, your relationship, all these things.
That's
and
true.
To be honest, the greater community would be at large would be way more in an advantaged position, because when we as a PAD or Black community, whatever you want to call it, are in a position where we are stronger together. When we have when we're able to be more stable, because we give so much in our current states, you know, in our current like position. From being very under-resourced and underserved and everything, and so putting us in, you know, supporting our visions to be, you know, just be in able to be at certain tables, have certain conversations. It's not just for ourselves. It really goes, because, you know, I can speak for myself. At the heart, at the core of what I want to do, it really is going to benefit more people than just me. Like anything that is worth doing at this point is overlooking ourselves into our you know what I mean? And so and so I think that's a big part of this work that we're seeing, and identifying that, and, you know, being able to represent that, and okay, what does that look like? And how can we support the people who are already doing this work to have a better, you know, to be supported and do what they're doing with more ease and grace. You know, how can we get there?
And so this event is that, you know, so you said, like, you know, the events being something that in some ways maybe looks like it's not the thing, but like when we only announced it 2 weeks ago, and then we were still kind of, you know, we kind of got that blow, so we were like, we're shaky a bit, and Ariel's like, are you sure? Like, having a baby next week? Like,
I know Ariel's having a baby.
Like, you know, I'm doing this, but you need, like, he literally called me and was like, I need you to tell me, Zarya, that I don't need to worry. And I'm like, you don't need to worry. Like,
right.
Yeah,
I mean, no need to worry. Yeah, right.
Yeah, no need to worry. Right. No need to worry. And one of the things that really strikes me about For Roots and, both of your leadership is just the selflessness that you bring to this, right? And I'm just so privileged and honored to have this conversation with both of you, right? Like, you're not, I've not, maybe I missed it, but I've not heard you center yourselves or center your own economic needs first, right? Just now, Emmanuel, like, okay, how do we advance people? How do we advance this work? And so for me, that's just, a mark of great leadership. And so speaking of, not even when, what has been the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to you as a leader? And I'll start with, most embarrassing thing. Whoever wants to start, go.
Go first. It's a good
one. That gets people uncomfortable. I love it. You see people moving around like, okay, you didn't expect this one coming.
As a leader, most embarrassing thing, yeah. Well, I guess I feel like I've been in a space of leadership for a long time because I've been a mom for a while, and I've had to move through. I told you in the last conversation, I've been out on my own for a long time, and that's something that Emmanuel and I kind of have in common. I think in that, I for different reasons, but I was kicked out of the house when I was 16. So the path of figuring out people and myself and who I want to be and how I want to live and which community I want to be a part of has just been going, this spiral. And I think over the last probably last 6-7 years I've started to hone my voice and my identity and holding a leadership identity for myself, even though I'm a very unconventional leader in the sense that there's many reasons why, but also that I'm not received in, necessarily always as a leader because of the way that I express myself and, I don't fit in all the boxes all the time quite intentionally, but finding my dance in that is hard because I still am very hyper aware of the expectations and where those boxes are. And when I choose to be out of them, how that can be taken, by others. And so I've had all kinds of embarrassing stuff through that process, but recently, in the last year, I was building community at home, and I'm not going to go into the specifics, but to have a breakdown with close people inside of our community, that I was I really am one of the leaders of, and just having to humbly walk through the experience of okay, what were my lessons inside of this? Where was I, maybe too unforgiving in that moment, and then it kind of backfired on me. And and I guess it's not necessarily embarrassing, but shameful maybe. There, just places where I'm I look back and I'm oh, I could have, if I was more grounded or in touch with my center, then that wouldn't have happened. And so I think those happen. I think they happen pretty often, actually, because you're always learning. I'm getting bumped into this all the time. I think to myself, as a leader, holding onto a bumper of a car, pulling and me telling everybody, it's okay.
It's okay.
Hey, let's just try this new ideal. Unschool everybody. Let's all live together. Okay, now let's start this. And then I'm and then they just walk on the path after, move all the points. And I'm just don't worry, it's okay, stay.
That's the thing with leadership, right? That you have to blaze the trail.
It's dancing between embarrassment and joy, and just being okay with myself, which is actually the thing. We kind of balance each other in that sense, where he'll kind of you both kind of heard for both of you, well, we're not going to use that as an excuse. When are we gonna? And then I'm on the other side, kind of being the most immense grace and self-compassion, actually understanding that we have to go there. We do have to go to we've been really harmed in order to give ourselves permission to be whoever we are in that moment, so that we can look at the mistakes and the embarrassing things as just strategies that we didn't have choice to make in that moment, and then we can learn from it. So
I love it. I love the learning from it bit
I have
too.
One. I have one.
Emmanuel, tell us.
Oh, it's very specific. Okay.
Yeah. Go.
Just for you guys, you and your listeners' ears. No one else needs to know about it.
No one else.
But yeah, it was at an event, and like, you know, full disclosure, I feel like at the core of myself, I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert, but I know how to be social when I want to be, you know? And so, you know, it's very interesting playing the game, or, you know, playing the role or the hats that I currently have, or hold on to, in terms of hosting events and that sort of thing. And so I remember here in BC, you know, at some point we had a 420 event because marijuana or cannabis had just been legalized, right? And so we had collaborated with one of the local, like it was a lounge. So we wanted to help with like getting more people in the door. They were running it through a society, and they wanted like more membership and that sort of thing. And so we said, okay, no problem. Like, this is a local space, and like I know the owners and that sort of thing. And like we want to work with you. Yeah. So we had a live event. It was really beautiful. Set up the space nicely, and everything was great. Like, you know, people came, danced, you know, signed up as the plan was, and everything like that. Yeah. And you know, and towards the end, like, you know, for me, like, you know, sometimes I may use herb as more of a spiritual and internal thing. But you know, towards the end, I was like, okay, well, everything is going well. Like, it's nice. And you know, I think the owner had offered me a puff or something, or something.
Do I need a drum roll for this?
Drum roll. Yeah. And you know, almost immediately, I went from being charismatic and very like, oh, you know, holding the space to very like very inward. Like, you know, and immediately everyone was like, wow, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Like, is everything okay? And then it turned into like, from me supporting everybody to everybody supporting me. And that was a very, very embarrassing moment. And you know, and in hindsight, it was one of the things that made me like, you know, I don't mix certain things together at all. Like, you know, I don't even you know, even prior to this, I've never really drank alcohol or anything like that. But you know, at these moments when I'm holding space for people, when I'm taking on a role, I definitely don't, like, I'm just drinking water. So that was like my very specific embarrassing moment, you know, in leadership.
But you know, it's interesting, right? Your embarrassing moment, you know, came with some learning to it, right? It's what he just said just now, right? That, well, a lot of the things bring some learning to it, right? And I love even the perspective that you've taken now to say, well, if I'm doing this, I'm not going to mix that with that, right?
Absolutely.
So here's what I was thinking was, you know, you're going down with this story, because I'm kind of naughty that way, right? I'm like, geez, man, did he hand out some gummies to the whole party?
No. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do that like that to anybody. But to me, myself, it was more self-inflicted than anything, you know.
I love it. And so, folks, we're coming. We are coming to the top of the hour here, and I know you've got other responsibilities, and there's a meeting that's coming up in 2 hours that I know you folks have to be a part of as well.
Hope to see you there too.
Yeah. I'm planning to attend, so it's good. It's good.
Awesome.
But before I let you go, just if you had to think of 3 people, let me see. With both either living or dead that you would want to have dinner with, who would they be?
Have dinner with. Amazing.
Oh, sheesh. Living or dead? I would definitely, like, I think I've had this, someone asked me this question a while ago, and I would definitely go like to some of my ancestors for sure. Like, I'd love to sit with like a grandma, you know, a few dinners back on both sides, on my mom and my dad's side.
Okay.
So that would be 2, because I definitely would just love to like be in that presence, especially because for me, there's like a big break on both sides. Like, I don't have like a strong connection with my dad's family, because he wasn't really involved in my life. And my grandpa, his dad was really, like, he did an amazing job of keeping me as close as he could in that context. But and then on my mom's side, she was adopted, and so I didn't learn anything about my biological grandma until like I was in my 30s. And so to be able to sit with some of my ancestors, and then who else? Let me pick a real life person that would be cool. This is gonna make you guys laugh. Jay-Z.
Woohoo! Okay.
Amazing. Hey, let's hear about this.
Jigger, yeah, let's get him. Hey?
Different things and like where was he in? Oh, you even showed me some music yesterday or the weekend.
Yeah.
But he's just like you listen to his words and like the way I feel like I have a bit of an opinion.
Flows, right?
Yeah. He just came from like the craziest thing and he's like where he is now. And like he really tracks the whole journey. And he really names the things like as he's going along. Like I was here and now I'm here. And like that's like I get a lot of energy from that like awareness. It's like it's like God's grace. It's like, oh my gosh, my purpose. The way that like there are literally reasons why I shouldn't be here. Like actually situations I've been in that I should not be here in any stretch. Like any of the things. Podcasting an interview with you, like none of this makes sense given so many things in my life.
Oh, come on.
And so I appreciate that. I know there's so many others, but Jay-Z I've been listening to him lately, so he was on top of me.
That's really cool.
So it's so cool, right? So for me, Jay-Z and Dave Chappelle are like right there for me, right? Like
cool.
You really need to listen to what they're saying for you to get it.
Totally.
Like they really are so for me, this is my opinion of them, like so smart, right? That it's almost you could almost pass like for Jay-Z, like whatever, and then you're like, no, what did I just did he just say that? Yeah. And then you pay back, you're like, whoa. And then Dave Chappelle, like when he's just doing social commentary, like some of the stuff is so smart, so layered, like particularly when he's speaking about politics in the US, right? I'm like, whoa, this dude just unearthed a whole big thing in a joke. Right?
It goes over a lot of people's heads because it's a joke.
It can just go whoop. And then sometimes when I'm watching his shows on Netflix, I'm like, oh wait, pause. Like
yes.
Oh.
Yes, that's what it means. Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah,
I'm with you, Z. Don't. So Jay-Z right up there. So last one.
I'd add one more really quickly, and this one I'm not going to talk about, but Kris Jenner also, the mom head of the Kardashian family. I also really channel some Kris Jenner in my life, and I really appreciate the way she keeps her family together.
The family together. Yeah.
They're still together through all the scandals and everything, and that really puts me on.
That's amazing. That's amazing. How to even hold that space and how to even just keep family, right? So we can fight. We can do this and this and this.
Like daughters, all like it's not easy work.
Man.
That's not easy work.
Yeah, so good. Emmanuel.
Yeah. So for me, one person I would definitely love to have a conversation with is my grandfather on my mom's side.
Okay.
Yeah, because he did something really different. Like, so he was next in line to be royalty in that region.
Okay.
Of Anegala in like Kogi State.
Okay.
But he decided against it because he became a Christian. And traditionally when you're royalty and when you're in all these positions of power back home, the power is not just like being able to order people around. There's also spiritual implications and rituals and things like that you need to do to hold for the whole community, right? And so he passed that to his younger brother. Yeah. And I've always been really curious about that,
because being a chief brings a whole lot of privilege with it, right? And so
not just the chief, like actually like the king of the area,
the village. Oh wow. Wow.
So like, I can imagine his whole life he was looking forward to that or at certain points, and then and so he learned something about through missionaries or about God or that's one conversation I would love to have. And Yeshua, as well. That sounds Yeshua the Christ, because I grew up Christian, and there's Christianity in the world, but Christianity, he wasn't a Christian, and Christianity as how it looks today, I don't think looks anything like how he was trying to lead and show. So you should come to the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, so as cliche as it might sound.
I'll be a fly on the wall in that conversation.
Absolutely. I'm sure he would love that.
Yep.
You know?
Oh, in fact, I'll just host a whole podcast conversation. Say, okay, let's have a conversation.
Exactly. Let's just spread the word, the real good word, right? I really see, you know, in my own experience growing up in a Christian home and everything, I really see the difference between the spiritual aspects and the religious aspects, and I would like to have, you know, it's always good to hear it from the horse's mouth and hear everything from the source of where it's supposed to come from. And so, and then third person just have to have someone that's living, it would be between Terrence Howard,
I thought about that too.
or Kanye West, you know.
Easy, yeah.
You know, I like Kanye West because you know, other than music and, you know, growing up listening to, you know, at certain points I listened to more of his music than other times I kind of looked away. But you know, I really flagged him when the world started to call him crazy. Because, you know, in my own little research and what I've seen, when people start to like, when not just people, but like the media is really going hard on this character assassination. I mean that there's some truth that you're saying that they don't want out, right? And so the way he processes information, the way he lives, and that sort of thing, you know, with that confidence, and you know, also like, you know, very similar to Jay-Z. Just like, you know, he's a little bit more crazy, and like I like that a little bit because you know, he came from nothing in Chicago, and he was a billionaire. You know,
he's done the same thing.
He's done the same thing.
Crazy, and he's
amazing. And while he's been crazy, you know, like he had that deal with Adidas, and when they dropped him, it messed up their whole sales and their whole stocks. And so it just shows that, you know, this character, you know, this archetype, whatever you want to call it, it's really, you know, he knows what he's doing in some ways, you know what I mean? So yeah, thank you for that question. What about you? You said Dave Chappelle and Jay-Z, and who else?
Well, before you come to me, really, you know, thank you for Kanye too, right? Because I think about he is a black man who is not listening to anything else that the world is saying. He continues to do the thing that he wants to do. Never mind the noise.
Absolutely.
From inside out, right? And being authentic about it, and just you know, moving forward. So that's important, and I think that also is inspirational in so many ways, right? That don't let the naysayers say whatever they want to say and then you listen to that. No, just keep blazing your trail. And you know, circumstance and whatever will meet you along the way, and you know, you continue doing the thing that you want to do. For me, well, one would be there's a musician who's late now, but from my country, Zimbabwe, called Oliver Mtukudzi. I would love to sit down and have a conversation with him, just about his lyrical prowess and ability to unpack social issues, culture, community through music. Right, he was a very famous musician. I'm sure you know. You go on Spotify or you know Apple Music or whatever you know streaming channel you use, you'll be able to pick him up and listen to some of his music. Very, very interesting. And Fela Kuti would be another musician. I would love.
When you said that, I thought of him next. I was like, I didn't say him. That's hilarious.
Not just about singing without a top or a t-shirt or anything, but just the social justice angle and the fight for the rights, right? It's like, you know, and then you're so energetic, and I would just love to have that conversation too, to say, what is it about his generation that, you know, was going on that made him write the songs and speak and sing the way he did. And so I suppose today I'm on a musical tip, because the next one would be Bob Marley, right? Again, man, this is deep for me too, right? Maybe because I was just processing something over the weekend, but Bob Marley was singing about emancipation, right? From slavery for black people. And many of his songs speak truth today than they did even 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right?
So many people, like, anytime his music comes on, it's like medicine, instantly changes.
Man, like, no matter what, right? Like One Love, like, I mean, I'm like, Wow, just unity, the unity that he brought through One Love, the unity that he brought, the messages, Three Little Birds sitting by my doorstep. Like I was playing a few of his songs when I was coming from from University of Victoria this afternoon. I was like, wow, I wonder if you are still alive, what you will be saying as a social comment, in social commentary, what you will be saying, even in his songs, what you'll be singing. And so those three for me would be top notch, right? So because there's so much power, in through music, right? You can speak to politicians, you can speak to community, you can center culture, you can do all these kind of things. So
all the classes too.
It transcends all the classes too, right? So those are my top three.
There it is.
Beautiful.
Fantastic. So folks, thank you so much for the time. I want to, have you back again. There's lots and lots and lots to talk about. I know in the back end, the things that we can't talk about right now, we are working on a few things that center community. And so I'm hoping that, as your time and schedule allows, after summer, we can come back and have this conversation again.
Thank you so much for having us. It was so great to have a conversation. It was easy to talk to you about all these things. So thank you for holding this space. Your platform is very important. This is very important work here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Full support and appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you so much for listening to Voices Less Heard. We hope, you'll join again next time as we continue to explore the untold stories that happen in our communities. Thank you and have a good time. Thank you for listening to the Voices Less Heard podcast with Dr. PMak. I hope you enjoyed insights that came out of this conversation. Keep your notifications on. Our next episode will be dropping soon. Thank you and enjoy.